Now, Hurricane Beryl is heading for the Cayman Islands after tearing across the southern coast of Jamaica. At least 6 people have been killed and hundreds of thousands of homes remain without power. Matthew Cappucci is a meteorologist at Fox 5 DC in Washington, DC, and is the author of Looking Up, the true adventures of a storm-chasing weather nerd. Matthew, welcome to Times Radio. Just give us the latest on Hurricane Beryl. Where is it currently?
Yeah, most definitely. So I work as a meteorologist for the My Radar app. It is currently located a little bit southwest of the Cayman Islands. So it sideswiped Jamaica, had winds right around 150 to 170 kilometers per hour on the far southern portions of the island. Right now, it's kind of drifting west-northwest at about 35-ish kilometers per hour. I think the Cayman Islands are mostly good. They did see tropical storm force conditions. Next up, though, the Yucatan Peninsula, and after that, the U.S. Gulf of Mexico.
And this is the most powerful storm to ever make landfall this early in hurricane season. Why is that? What's different about this storm?
Yeah, so this storm went from a tropical depression to a Category 4 in just 48 hours' time, the fastest intensifying storm on record in the Atlantic before the month of September. It is the farthest south Category 4 on record, and moreover, its rate of intensification, its strength is just so unprecedented for this time of year, being the strongest ever observed in the month of July, or really any month before that. Part of the reason, weather factors. We had a weak upper level winds that made it easier for a storm to form without being kind of knocked off kilter. We also had spreading air in the upper atmosphere, which made it easier to kind of vacuum air upwards, causing a storm. But that's just enough to make a hurricane. To get a storm this top tier, you need a lot of juice, a lot of fuel. And we got that in the form of anomalously warm water temperatures, 3 to 5 degrees Fahrenheit, so about 2 or 3 Celsius above average. Record warm, in fact. And really, the waters look more like, I'd say, late August, early September than this time of year. Part of the reason, human-induced climate change causing these waters to be warmer. Part is by chance, but really you have 3 or 4 different factors all aligning to make this really intense high-end storm.
Does that mean come the end of the summer, come September, we could be facing even worse conditions?
Most definitely. September 15th is the historical peak of hurricane season. So really, we're not even supposed to be getting storms this big at this point in the summer. I think one thing that really stands out is that we have a La Nina this year, which means a couple things. La Nina begins as a cooling of water temperatures in the eastern tropical Pacific. Now, that's the Pacific. That means the waters of the Pacific are cooler. It causes the air above to kind of cool down and sink. But where the air goes down, somewhere else the air has to go up. And so you get broad rising motion or lift in the Atlantic. That winds up causing a lot more upward moving air, better chances of storms, and you also have weaker winds in the upper atmosphere over the Atlantic, and subsequently it's easier for storms to form. So we think this season we'll see more storms, more intense storms, and unfortunately this could be a very active or even hyperactive, and yes, that's an actual term, hyperactive season in the Atlantic. I think we're just getting started. September is going to be one of those times when we all got to buckle up as meteorologists.
I mentioned it's heading for the Cayman Islands now. It's caused pretty severe damage in Jamaica. Do we know the full extent of the damage caused there? I mean, I know there was a curfew in place, and I think that ended only a few hours ago when you take into account the time difference between Jamaica and the UK. So I'm guessing people are still waking up and just surveying the damage.
Yeah, I think we'll learn more in the days ahead. I think one piece of good news, however, is that the eye wall, that inner ring of winds, just barely scraped the southern portions of the island. So Jamaica's main airport got a gust to about 81 miles per hour in Kingston. That's roughly about 120, 115 kilometers per hour. So bad, but not terrible. They can manage that, especially with the infrastructure they have there. The other piece of good news, too, I think we had something called an inversion. So a subtle increase in air temperature with height at about 10 to 15,000 feet, and that prevented some of these stronger winds from mixing down the ground. So small piece of good news. We still will take a little while to understand just how bad the damage was. I think it was a pretty severe blow to Jamaica. That said, it could have been worse had that eye shifted even just 15 to 20 kilometers farther north.
And what do we know about its course after this?
It is heading to Mexico's Yucatan Peninsula. I think Cozumel and Playa del Carmen will likely be impacted more directly with winds, I'd say, 120 to perhaps gusting up to 140 kilometers per hour, and a storm surge of 1 to 2 feet. That will come late Thursday night to Friday morning local time. Farther north, Cancun should escape the worst. They'll likely see winds gusting 70 to 100 kilometers per hour, and that's a pretty busy vacation destination. Thereafter, it enters the Bay of Campeche, the Gulf of Mexico, and there is some room for re-intensification. We're not sure if it'll be steered farther west by kind of a blocking dome of high pressure that wants to shunt it west into Tamaulipas, Mexico, or if a trough, a dip in the jet stream with a little bit of extra low pressure, will kind of tug it north and eventually cause it to pass the international border and perhaps make landfall in far southeast Texas.
Matthew, thank you so much. Matthew Cappucci there, a meteorologist at Fox 5 DC in Washington, DC. He's also the author of Looking Up, the True Adventures of a Storm-Chasing Weather Nerd, giving us the latest on Hurricane Beryl.